Tonight on The Wrap, time to face the music. As Prince William avoids questions about his uncle's links to the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, a renewed call from Virginia Giuffre's family for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to head to the US.
What is your message to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor?
I think he should show up in front of our Congress and answer questions.
The former boss of MI6 tells Sky News that the Epstein files revealed the appalling systemic abuse of women and girls, and says he played no part in the vetting process for Lord Mandelson's appointment as US ambassador. I'll never walk away, Sir Keir Starmer jokes it's been a busy week and says he'll lead Labour into the next election as his former communications chief apologises for an association with a paedophile counsellor. And the FBI releases new doorbell camera footage of a masked man in their search for the missing mother of a US television presenter. Well, we discuss the day's biggest stories with Adam Boulton and Sonia Sodha, plus a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including Sir Keir Starmer's premiership still under pressure. Hello, good evening. Good evening to Adam and Sonia as well. Tonight, more pressure from the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to travel to the US to speak to Congress. Here, the findings of the poll carried out exclusively for Sky News suggest the majority of the British public agree. More of that in a moment, but first, Sonia, Adam, is it clear now that people really want to see some form of accountability?
Oh, I think it absolutely is. The question is the system in the US, is the system over here for all these various scandals that we've had happening, is it going to deliver?
Adam.
I think there's certainly been a change in the culture towards sexual offences and sexual misbehaviour that was in the past perhaps people tended to draw a veil over. And of course it's easier now because of digital records to go back into the past.
OK, we'll discuss more, obviously, but this afternoon we saw a senior US Democrat outline calls for what they're calling Virginia's law, named after the woman who spoke out about Jeffrey Epstein. It would end the time limit on legal action for abuse victims, and with it a message for the former Duke of York to show up and give evidence. Here's our US correspondent, Mark Stone.
Stand with survivors and say no more.
The time for justice is now, and Congress must act.
No longer can abusers weaponize the clock. Survivors can act when they're ready to act.
The victims, the survivors, they are at the heart of a scandal that now has so many strands. And they were in the US Congress today, led by the brother of the woman whose teenage photo came to define the scandal.
Virginia's dream was to inspire and empower survivors to come forward. In a world that too often turns away from abuse and pushes it into the shadows, she wanted to bring light.
Virginia Giuffre, once Virginia Roberts, and once at the heart of Jeffrey Epstein's orbit. This photo, with a prince as he was, sparked the scandal in the UK. It led them both to court. In the end, he settled and paid her a sum undisclosed. He continues to deny wrongdoing. The photograph of the then Prince Andrew with his arm around your sister has become, certainly in the UK, a defining part of this scandal. Clearly, he is one person who hasn't answered questions here. What is your message to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor today, please?
I think he should show up in front of our Congress and answer questions. I think that he has a lot of questions he needs to answer, and he has been exploited through these files to have inconsistencies in his own messaging. So I want today to be about Virginia's law, to not allowing this to happen again, but to Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, to be specific. He needs to show up. He needs to show up, and he needs to answer questions in front of our Congress.
And Senator Schumer.
Same thing as what Sky said. He ought to show up and show up now.
That's significant. Chuck Schumer is the most senior Democratic Party politician in America. Quite the statement. The purpose of all this was to mark a moment for these survivors, the moment they push forward their aim to end the statute of limitations for victims of trafficking and abuse.
This is really a watershed moment for survivor rights. This law will change everything for them. It allows survivors to bring a claim whenever they're ready, with no time limitations. And that is a significant shift in the law.
I would like to answer your question, but on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer this question.
Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell used her Fifth Amendment rights to remain silent this week when she appeared in Congress from jail.
I therefore invoke my right to silence under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
Ghislaine Maxwell showing up to the hearing yesterday and basically pleading the Fifth. It's basically you're scared to come forward because you have something to hide. And the reality is that your own good friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, outed you out in the files and basically confirmed everything that Virginia said was true.
Confirming that photograph, which he denied, he said it could be a fake. The files prove that was no fake.
The files prove that is not a fake.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor continues to deny any wrongdoing. All they want here is for him to come to this place and answer their questions. Mark Stone, Sky News on Capitol Hill.
Well, let's speak to Mark now. Mark, we could see the tears falling from people's faces there. A truly emotional news conference. The victims, the family of Virginia Giuffre that you spoke to too, have always wanted answers. And as you've made perfectly clear, they want people to turn up to Congress to give their version of events.
Yeah, they really do. You know, such a storm the Epstein story has been for many weeks now, many years, but really over the past few weeks since those documents have been released. It is, I think, dangerous, easy to lose sight of the core of all this, which is the victims. It is the survivors. And I truly got that sense today in the corridors of Congress, where the emotion was thick. I mean, it really was. So that's the first point I would make. The second, yeah, this is being led by Sky Roberts, Virginia Giuffre's brother. She is a woman who's part of this story is complex. I mean, she's written a book. She's dead now. She took her own life in Australia. But her story is complex, and I think has kind of made everything that much more complex. And what he wanted to do today was try and straighten out the fact that she was a victim, and there should be no statute of limitations for all the other victims. I mean, she was a victim. She was also described as an unreliable witness. She also, in a sense, became an accomplice because of the nature of the abuse that she was under with Epstein. All of that is in her book. But nevertheless, at the heart of it all, she and all the others were victims. And that was really the core of this today. And it was powerful stuff. The third point I would just make to you all there is that what's astonishing is that while in the UK and in other European countries, the Epstein saga, the Epstein scandal, has had many scalps and may well have many more, it's not really touching the sides here in the United States, which is extraordinary. The one exception to that is Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, who is on record as saying Epstein is a disgusting guy. When I saw the massage parlors he had in his house, I said to my wife, we are never going near that man again. And then guess what? It turned out through the release of the Epstein files that he did go and stay on Epstein's island well after he had ditched the guy and told him he wanted nothing to do with him. So there's pressure for the Howard Lutnick. But aside from that, Trump feels like he's got away with everything by releasing the files, albeit with so many redactions that many people are so uneasy about.
Yes, that's certainly not lost on us here. Mark, thank you very much indeed. I mean, Sonia, Mark's right. The focus has been on documents. First of all, the release of millions of them, then on whether confidential information was passed from Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor to Jeffrey Epstein and the legal implications of that. This takes it back to the victims, doesn't it? So this idea of the statute of limitations, where people have been held back from their stories being investigated, potentially by people of wealth and of power. Does this give them an opening, do you think?
Well, I hope so. And I think lots of viewers of your programme, like me, would have been surprised to hear that for some quite serious crimes in the US, crimes as serious as sex trafficking, there is a statute of limitations. That just doesn't exist in the UK. If you commit a serious crime in the UK, doesn't matter if it's 30 years later, that you don't get protection from the law. There's no time limit for victims to come forward and accuse you of a crime and for you to potentially see your day in court. So this is really important. It's particularly important in cases of abuse, sexual abuse, particularly involving children, as this one did, because we know that it can take abuse victims many years, even decades sometimes, because of the shame that surrounds and the stigma that surrounds being victims of these sorts of crimes to come forward. So I do hope that that is something that the Democrats make good progress on in the US.
Yeah. Yes, I was just going to say to Adam, it's not the first time we've heard demands for Prince Andrew, as he was, to come to Congress to give evidence. Does it matter now, given what we heard from the King yesterday, that the top Democrat on Capitol Hill is joining in with those calls?
Well, I think it's still not clear really what they're trying to do in Congress. I mean, they're not prosecuting authorities themselves, and we know that...
well, aren't they just trying to get to the bottom
members
of this?
Well, members of Congress like grandstanding, and you know, if they got former Prince Andrew to go out there, that would be a big day, just as we went through that ritual of them having Ghislaine Maxwell paraded. And, you know, there is, I think, a great willingness in America generally to concentrate on the foreigners who are involved. And it is interesting, you know, as Mark was saying about Howard Lutnick, who's the Commerce Secretary, because basically it's now been exposed that he lied. He said in 2005, you know, he may have been my neighbour, but he was a disgusting man, and I went there once and I never had anything to do with him. Now it turns up that in 2012, which significantly is after Epstein's first conviction, he's passing with his family and saying, you know, can I pop in on what people call Pedo Island, Little St James, for a nice lunch? So I think, you know, it's quite an important crack emerging, and interesting too. Donald Trump asked about it, and the Financial Times said he just said it's a hoax.
My goodness, that's very interesting. Yeah, we'll watch what happens to Howard Lutnick, certainly. In the meantime, let's take a look now at our exclusive poll, which was carried out by YouGov. It found that an overwhelming majority of people, 82%, thought the King should encourage Andrew to give evidence to police in the US. Just 6% disagreed, with 13% saying not sure. Well, the poll also found that 45% of people believe the King has done enough to distance himself and the wider royal family from Andrew, with 39% saying he should be doing more. 16% could not decide. We also asked if the King should stop Andrew from living on the Sandringham estate. The majority, 63%, said they believe he should. Only 16% disagreed, with 20% saying they weren't sure. That shows a real firming up of public opinion on this, doesn't it, Sonia?
Oh, it does. And I think there'll be some relief for the royal family looking at that. You know, most people do think that the King has done enough. But there's still quite a few people who don't. And I think one thing that we can say looking back is I do think that the King has drawn a clearer line between him and Andrew than the Queen ever managed. And in some ways, you know, this is one of the things about being a royal family. The Queen is Andrew's mother. She's also his boss. And that creates some very difficult conflict of interest. And by all accounts, she found it very hard to draw the lines that needed to be drawn. But I think there will be some solace for the palace in that. I think the statement that we've seen in the last 24 hours from the palace, it's really, I mean, it doesn't kind of leave any ambiguity, I suppose, as to where it's coming from. So I think, you know, that there will be the hope that this will be enough.
Well, Prince William has faced uncomfortable questions, certainly about his uncle, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, on the second day of his visit to Saudi Arabia. He was touring a sports centre in the Saudi capital, Riyadh, when reporters asked him to comment on the royal family's handling of the Epstein scandal.
Sir, to what extent do you think the royal family has done enough around the Andrew and Epstein issue? Sir, to what extent do you think the royal family has done enough around the Andrew and Epstein issue?
Interestingly, Adam, we had Robert Jobson, author, journalist, on Sky News earlier. He said it is clear it is no longer good enough to ignore questions. It is no longer good enough to talk about this as an embarrassment. People are now seeking accountability at the highest levels, which doesn't just involve, he said, losing your titles, losing your grace and favour property. It involves all sorts of questions that you should then be partaken to. Do you agree with that for the royal family now? Do they need to start answering?
Well, of course, that's why they made the statement in advance, why William's people briefed the press that, with his regret and his concern for the victims, and it's also why we've had comment from the King and the present Queen. I mean, we have to remember, going back in this, that the royal family basically did come up with $12 million for Virginia Giuffre, so it's not as if they're not aware of the cost of this. As far as Prince Andrew is concerned, they have pretty much cut him loose and said, he's going to have to face the legal consequences of what he's done. If I was him, I'd be more worried about the possibility of misconduct in a public office for passing on documentation than what's going on in America, where, frankly, I can't see anything that he would gain by cooperating with the authorities. And I don't think that the King would want to risk the embarrassment. And if the King said he has to give evidence, I think he would have to do it. Because remember, he is absolutely the dependent of the King. He doesn't really have any money. The reason why he's been put on the Sandringham estate is because they don't want him running off elsewhere. They've also got the problem of Fergie, what she's going to do.
Well, and it's privately owned, isn't it? That's
but
it feels like the taxpayer's not paying.
No, but there was a row over Royal Lodge because he did have a legal document saying he could live there for 75 years, and he had to be wheedled out of that by the King, and getting the farms or the property on Sandringham was the compromise.
Well, my colleague Yelda Hakim has been speaking to the former head of MI6, Sir Richard Moore, about the vetting process, this time for Peter Mandelson, before he was appointed US ambassador. Let's listen to that.
It's important to wind back and remember what this is about, which is the display of kind of rancid misogyny and appalling systematic abuse of women and girls. I mean, I can't really comment on the vetting process. I wouldn't have been part of it. No doubt Peter Mandelson, like anybody taking up a senior job in government, would have gone through a vetting process. But yes, I mean, I presume that if he was appointed, then he passed it. At the end of the day, you do some background checks as a part of this process. So undoubtedly there would have been some background checks. And then there's an interview process. They can sometimes be uncomfortable conversations because you're being asked about very private elements of your lifestyle or about your financial situation, and you are required to answer those questions truthfully.
Yes, that's the rub, isn't it? The truthful part. You can scan the QR code on the screen now to see Yelda's full interview, though, with Sir Richard Moore. They touched on many other matters. The implication there, obviously, that Mandelson was not truthful. But this is the information that is going to come out in the days and weeks ahead, is it not? Yeah,
I mean, there are really three aspects of this. First of all, there are those people who say, on his past record, Peter Mandelson was obviously dodgy, so he should never have been given the job. Now, he was rehabilitated by Gordon Brown, so, Keir Starmer could say there's precedent there. There's then what was known about the nature of his friendship with Epstein, and Peter Mandelson clearly, I mean, Keir Starmer says he lied. He clearly said, oh, well, he's an acquaintance of mine. I haven't had much to do with him, even although it was on the record by then that he had borrowed the flat to stay in New York while Epstein was still in prison. Peter Mandelson did admit he continued to have a relationship with Epstein after his conviction. But then the third thing, which nobody knew, was that Peter Mandelson, A, had received money from Epstein, and B, had passed on government documents to him. And I suspect it never crossed anybody's mind that had gone on, so he wasn't asked that question. But I think we have to say, if you're going to have a vetting process, maybe it ought to be a bit more thorough and turn up these sort of things.
Yeah, but this is it. We don't know what the vetting process involved right now, do we? And but the problem is, for government, we will find out.
And it doesn't sound like MI6 were involved, but I assume that MI6, for its own agents, has a much more robust vetting process, and maybe they should start doing that.
But I mean, we have got to say the only person who can be blamed in this context is Peter Mandelson, because he clearly knew.
I mean, are you exonerating everybody in government then who?
Well, all I'm saying,
put his name forward.
I am saying, no, I'm saying on the point of him taking money from.
This was not known
from Epstein,
so therefore it was not asked.
And on the point of him passing on documents while he was a minister, this was not known to anyone except Peter Mandelson, and frankly, he would have been better advised never to have put himself forward for the ambassador's job, knowing that that was in his record.
Yeah, I suppose that, you know, there is that, but then there's also, as you said, Adam, the fact of the friendship. It was in the intelligence that went to Number 10, reporting is revealed. It was known that the friendship was close, and that did go in the Number 10 sort of information. So I think there's definitely a sense that if they'd done their job properly, they would have been able to get their hands on the facts, which was that there was a close association between these two men, and that should have raised some alarm bells.
And then there's also the question that it appears that Keir Starmer was in such a rush that he actually announced it all before the full vetting process had been completed anyway.
Yes, although the suggestion might be that it appeared in a newspaper before the vetting process was completed.
Yeah, no,
so that, but not necessarily put in there by Keir Starmer. Anyway, maybe that will come out.
But
as well.
you'd hope that the people in Number 10 were reading the papers, right?
Yeah, well, no, yeah, well, indeed so.
Or
but
watching this show.
Now, I can tell you regularly on Sunday morning, they put up the Minister of the Day, they come on, you say, what about this story on the front pages? They say, oh, no, I haven't read it.
How convenient.
Well, the backwash of all of these questions, of course, has been felt by Number 10 and specifically by the Prime Minister, who was himself in upbeat mood today, having survived one of the most difficult days of his premiership. So, having been buoyed then by support from members of his cabinet, Keir Starmer joked that it had been a busy week, but he'd never walk away, he said, from the country he loves.
We've pulled together as a party and been absolutely crystal clear about the fight we need to have, and that's the fight on behalf of all the people in this country who don't get the respect, the dignity and the chance that they deserve in life. That is the fight that we are in. That's who we're fighting for. I'm their Prime Minister, and this is their government. And what the last few days has shown is that that is absolutely the focus of this government. And we need to change in the sense of being out there, making that argument over and over again. Not talking internally to ourselves, which caused chaos under the last government, talking to the country and making it absolutely clear we're elected on a mandate for change, a 5-year mandate. It is our duty to deliver on that mandate.
Yes, in a community centre, you know, much better environment really for him. But Ed Miliband came out today. Andy Burnham was speaking at the Resolution Foundation. Keir Starmer was speaking about how working class the cabinet was and his working class roots. What are we seeing about the direction and the battle for the heart and soul of the Labour Party right now, Adam? Has it taken a step left in order to protect that Prime Minister?
Yes, is the simple answer. Or I don't think it's necessary to protect the Prime Minister. It's Prime Minister is perceived as weak. He needs support, and the price of that is going to be, as we've seen, frankly, in the 13 U-turns that he's already executed, that he's going to have to give way from to the pressure from the so-called soft left. The interesting thing, I think, is Wes Streeting, who, I mean, on the front page of Financial Times, it says allies admit Starmer is too weak to sack Streeting after coup speculation. Guardian says Streeting still intent on deposing Prime Minister in spite of a united front. And he is the one who is, if you like, potentially resisting the soft left. He has to play to it to a certain extent, and he's the one of all of them who's had the fanciest footwork over the last 24 hours, publishing his emails to Peter Mandelson so that he could rebuff claims that he was in Peter Mandelson's pocket, coincidentally putting on the record some of his reservations about Keir Starmer's policy and being rebuked for it to the point that the other people have now been banned from disclosing their emails early. So, you know, as they say in the trade, Wes Streeting is clearly on manoeuvres and looking like someone who, frankly, is capable of rather fancier footwork than the plodding Prime Minister.
Well, they all stayed over the precipice and didn't jump, did they, yesterday, which was fascinating. But, you know, in terms of what the soft left means for people at home sitting there thinking, does that mean my taxes go up? Does that mean there's going to be nationalisation of more public services, for example? Does that mean the unions have more power? What does it mean for us if Labour starts to go left, because partly because Morgan McSweeney has gone, who's the very man who fought Corbyn and wanted to take Labour to the centre ground?
Well, Anna, I think it's a very good question, and I think this is one of the big issues that Labour faces, actually, which is not only is there not one obvious candidate to take over, and they've all got their own issues, whether that's Angela Rayner's HMRC investigation or Wes Streeting's association with Mandelson, both of which, you know, they're rebutting. But there is a big question about what is the future direction of the Labour Party, what is their offer to the country. Starmer is quite rightly criticised, I think, for a lack of governing agenda. You know, how is he going to get the growth that is going to deliver better public services, for example, which was his big pledge at the time of the last election. And I don't think the party has really worked out what a soft left agenda looks like. What would a Wes Streeting premiership look like compared to an Angela Rayner premiership? We don't really know. There's a lot of talk about, oh, I'm badging myself as I'm from this wing of the party, I'm from this wing of the party. In terms of the agenda as substance, I think there is some way to go to understand what these different people stand for. And that is another reason why it's not ideal for them to go into a leadership contest right away.
Yeah, we're running out of time, but I'm going to mention a story we're going to talk about after the break, which is the former Number 10 Director of Communications, Lord Matthew Doyle, has had to put out a statement, having lost the whip, because he had an association with what has been described as a paedophile counsellor. I want to apologise for my past association with Sean Morton. His offences were vile, and I completely condemn the actions for which he was rightly convicted. My thoughts are with the victims and all those impacted by these crimes. I'm sorry about the mistakes I've made. I will not be taking the Labour whip. It's on the front page of the Eye. Full look at the newspapers coming out very shortly. One sentence on this, Adam. Is this guilt by association?
Well, it's certainly guilt by association because there's no question of no one's saying that Matthew Doyle committed these crimes, but had it been fully known at the time, and again, it had been reported particularly in the Times, there are questions whether he should have been put forward for a peerage, although it has to be said he's been a very loyal servant of the Labour Party and Keir Starmer in particular over the years.
But he also went and campaigned for somebody who'd been convicted of child sex offences. Charge of child sex.
That's a very significant difference.
I just made an error there, but charge with child sex offences was about to go on trial later that year. That raises very serious issues of judgment, and should you be putting a person in the Lords when they've done that? I don't think so. So they're telling voters to vote for somebody who's been charged with very serious offences.
OK, interesting. Both of you, we can talk more in just a moment when we'll take a full look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers. Back in a moment.
best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Well, it's time now to see what is making the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers before we have a good chat about them. The Guardian, first of all, reports that allies of Wes Streeting expect him to try to depose the Prime Minister within the next few weeks. The Financial Times also leading with the future of the Labour Party. Apologies, that's gone onto the eye, but I'll just finish this sentence. Saying that Starmer allies say he is too weak to sack the Health Secretary. You saw the Eye. They are reporting that Lord Doyle is suspended from the Labour Party over his links with a Labour councillor charged with possessing indecent images of children. The Telegraph covers the stabbing of 2 boys at a North London school as police arrest the teenage suspect. That is also on the front page of the Mail, which says the investigation into the double stabbing is being led by the Metropolitan Police's counter-terrorism unit. To the front of the Metro now, a drug dealer inspired by the film Home Alone to booby-trap his house gets 7 years in prison. So let's talk more then with Adam Boulton and Sonia Sodha. And Sonia, let's go to The Guardian, that the peril for the Prime Minister is not yet over, it appears from this.
Yeah, it's not, and it's quite an interesting decision, I think. These are allies of Wes Streeting, they're described as, saying, you know, that the Cabinet may have rallied round the Prime Minister yesterday. We saw Streeting come out at the Prime Minister, but not to worry about it being too calm in the weeks to come, because apparently they're saying Streeting is still intent on launching a leadership bid at some point. And I do think this... I think Anna Sarwar, in some ways, did the Prime Minister a big favour yesterday when he came out and said he's got to go, because it actually united people to rally behind the Prime Minister yesterday. But I think this shows the PM's problem. I think that show of unity has bought him some time. We've got a by-election coming up, we've got May elections coming up, but we've also got these candidates who want to replace him as Prime Minister. They've made no secret about it, really. You've got Wes Streeting on the right of the party, Angela Rayner on the left. And for Wes Streeting, there may be a reason to go more quickly, because Angela Rayner, some would say his main rival, is still waiting for the results of an investigation, an HMRC investigation into her tax affairs.
So he goes early to head her off, effectively.
Yes, exactly.
Adam, where do you see this playing out?
Well, I think the only problem with Wes Streeting going early is that because of his association with Peter Mandelson, it's very difficult to see him winning the votes of the various sections of the Labour Party that a leader requires. So I think that's one reason why yesterday he didn't move against the Prime Minister, because he probably needs more time. And Anna Sarwar, in a sense, who is said to be a supporter of Streeting, was left dangling out there as the only person who actually said the Prime Minister...
I mean, is it your belief that actually Anna Sarwar was in cahoots with Wes Streeting and Wes Streeting...
I have no evidence.
No idea.
That's been denied. I have no evidence they were in cahoots. But I think it's clear that there were people who, like Wes Streeting, who were sympathetic for him, and Anna Sarwar would be one of those. But I do think it's an interesting point that is on the front of the Financial Times, saying that Starmer is too weak to sack Streeting, because I think that's absolutely true. And I suspect it may well come up at Prime Minister's question time tomorrow that, you know, in the case of Kemi Badenoch, she outed her chief rival, and, you know, although he was going, Robert Jenrick, although he was going to defect, and got rid of him, and she'll may well say, well, why aren't you strong enough to get rid of the people who are plotting against you? That may be one line of attack she takes. And, of course, the point would be that if the Prime Minister were to say, I'm not putting up with this, you know, tacit disloyalty, I'm putting you out, he would then license Wes Streeting to say, well, you've sacked me, therefore I'm going to have a go at your leadership. So that's why he's not doing it.
Yeah, interesting. Everyone says one of the perils is if they come third in the Boulton by-election, everyone gives the incumbent party a bloody nose in by-elections, is all I'm going to say about that. Let's go to the a story in the Telegraph now. Ex-army boss says Europe can't rely on the US as a military partner. Down the bottom corner there, Europe must become a military superpower to survive without the United States. This is the former head of Britain's armed forces. I mean, is that fair enough, do you think?
Yeah, so this is General Sir Nick Carter. I think he's sort of telling us something that's been bleedingly obvious, actually, really, from even before Trump got his second term in office, but something that has become sharper ever since he did, which is that I think the US, for a while now, it's not just Trump, although Trump has accelerated the trend, no longer sees itself as the world's policeman and has been feeling for a while that Europe isn't pulling its weight when it comes to defence spending. Those have been the signals from the White House for quite a long time, but it's really sharpened under Trump. The problem is we're not spending enough. This government have committed to spend more, but it's not a really worked out pledge. And there's still very big question marks about, well, if we're shifting to 2.5%, 3% of GDP on defence, where's the money going to come from? Are you going to put taxes up? Are you going to cut other areas of spending? So I absolutely agree with this, but I think these army chiefs and former army chiefs have been warning about this for quite some time, and they're incredibly frustrated because these warnings do seem a bit to appear to be falling on deaf ears across Europe and in the UK. Yeah,
just a quick word on the picture story in the front of the Financial Times that, Russian losses are slowing advances, which is a real problem for Russia. And he can't put conscription in, Putin, clearly, because that might be when the public turns genuinely against the war.
Well, we know that Russia's been recruiting mercenaries. It's also been trying to get people from abroad. And, I mean, the scale of the losses are absolutely astronomical. 325,000 Russian soldiers killed. As it points out, that's 5 times what Russia's lost in every war since the Second World War. It's also something like 5 times what the Americans lost in Vietnam, and they still are not winning. So I think this, we know there are problems with defections, people leaving the country in Yugoslavia, in Ukraine. They're finding it difficult to get troops on their side. But I think this shows that all those people who keep on saying, oh, Russia's going to win in the end, maybe need to think again.
OK, let's go to The Guardian. MEPs approve offshore centres for migrants. Rwanda Mark 2.0 for the continent of Europe. I mean...
yeah, so this is...
seen it, done it,
it's a voting bloc of centre-right and far-right MEPs who said that they want to see legislative change on this. And it's really to enable... the Dutch government is negotiating an agreement with Uganda. It's a bit different to our Rwanda scheme that has now been scrapped, but basically to deport people whose asylum claims have been rejected in the Netherlands. They want to deport them to Uganda. Italy wants to run asylum centres offshore in Albania. So I do think it's a sign of how that consensus that lasted for a long time about asylum and the way it worked in Europe and Europeans having a shared responsibility may be breaking down as you're seeing the rise of the populist right across Europe. So it's not just a debate we're having here, driven by the right, it's also a debate happening on the European continent.
And driven by what's happening, with Donald Trump, do you think? I mean, not the extremities of ICE that we've seen in Minnesota, but do you think people are watching action, in real time there?
Well, I think, it is a problem of our times. And, as you say, we're seeing the rise of parties on the right, including, of course, Reform UK in this country. And politicians who don't address it are likely to face the consequences with the voters. I mean, it's very interesting. There's some research today that's been done by the pollster Scarlett Maguire, apparently with Dominic Cummings, who's written a long account of this, saying that effectively in all the focus groups, and they did 20 hours of focus groups around the country, people are really, really concerned about immigration, and they don't think the two main parties get it at all.
Interesting.
And the interesting thing, Dominic Cummings, who might be seen as extreme, I would certainly regard him as extreme, has written this account with a pollster who's by no means extreme. And first comment I saw about it was Daniel Finkelstein, saying he's absolutely right. This is the mood of the voters.
Very interesting. Well, the other mood of the voters is where's growth, where's the jobs, what about the cost of living, which is two connected stories we've got now. You mentioned this discussion between Wes Streeting and Peter Mandelson, about the fact there is no growth strategy from this government, despite the fact that they came in promising that. So, first of all, the Express, page 1, are Labour taxes crippling the high street? And then the Telegraph quotes the Tesco boss warning Starmer that we're sleepwalking into a worklessness epidemic with millions out of a job and on benefits, which is clearly not good for growth on any level.
Absolutely it isn't. And that has been a growing crisis for a long time. There are too many people out of work. The boss of Tesco is really right. The problem is that some of this stems back to the pandemic. We've now got a lot of people who have sort of been out of work long term, some of them with mental health issues, some of them with musculoskeletal issues. You have to spend a bit of money to get them back into work. This is the problem. And Labour tried to do some welfare reform and kind of flunked it with MPs. One of the reasons was that their approach to welfare reform was actually we're just going to take some money away from people who've genuinely got quite serious disabilities and can't work. The stuff that you have to do to move people who've been out of the labour market for like 3-4 years and might have some quite serious issues, obviously they need to be helped back into work. They can be, it's the best place for them. But that might actually take spending a bit of money to get them there, and that is Labour's dilemma.
Kemi Badenoch today is suggesting that employment is going down every month that Keir Starmer's been in power. And you know the national insurance contributions issue, employers' contributions, and all the other elements they brought in, business rates changes, employers' rights ruling. Has it taken away, do you think, this ability to get people into work, Adam?
Well, the problem is that there has been, and there continues to be, a dramatic increase in people who are certainly not physically disabled, who, a lot of claiming mental issues, who are being signed off and are getting these benefits. And the point that this boss of Tesco, Ashwin Prasad, is making is he's saying we are spending an ever-increasing proportion of our national income on out-of-work benefits. So he is saying, not that we're sleepwalking into it, but we're already in it. And the truth is that there does not seem to be the will, certainly in the Starmer government, to try and address this and reverse it.
OK, Adam, Sonia, stay there. Lots more still to come in the next part of our programme, including why the rain won't go away, leaving nearly 100 flood warnings in place. Taking a closer look at that.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
There's a fresh look to your news from 10 on Sky News.
It's a new show called The Wrap, every night of the week.
We'll still bring you the day's biggest stories,
but with more lively debate,
more in-depth commentary,
and more of what you need to know.
Plus a look at what's making tomorrow's headlines.
The Wrap.
Everything wrapped up for you from 10 on Sky News.
We're so used to seeing you with Rob. What's it like doing this kind of stuff when he's not here?
Yeah, I miss him. He just inspired me to be a better person. He's shown us what living looks like in the toughest and most difficult of circumstances.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
He had a beautiful death. This is about a dying person's choice to die peacefully when they want to, on their terms.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No,
Do you...
he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Well, now to the kidnap mystery which has gripped America. Tonight, the FBI has released surveillance images of a masked man from the night that Nancy Guthrie, mother of a US TV anchor, disappeared. We'll take a look at the video. It shows a person trying to cover the camera lens with plant foliage. The individual, wearing a balaclava, carrying a holster and a backpack, is then seen walking back and forth in the porch. The FBI director, Kash Patel, said the video showed an armed individual appearing to tamper with the camera at Nancy Guthrie's door the morning of her disappearance. Truly frightening, Sonia.
Oh gosh, just seeing those images, it's so incredibly chilling. But hopefully now the police have got them, they'll be able to make something of them, because I think for quite a while in this investigation, for a worrying amount of time, they didn't even have a suspect. And they may still not. I mean, who knows who that man is?
I just wonder why it's taken so long to release this footage.
Yeah.
I mean, there has been a suggestion that the police have been quite dopey, and this would seem to me, if it was on the records of the doorbell cam, you know, they should have got it right out there right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, now they've got a profile of a person, the look of them, appeal can go out, you know, all stations, etc. But the focus has been on whether or not there've been kidnap demands, haven't there? And which has also been confusing. But I mean, look at this, you know, this desperate attempt to hide the doorbell cam, clearly aware that it is there, you know, hiding any incriminating evidence, but clearly not in the end. But you know, this does help, does it not?
I mean, Savannah Guthrie has said she has been contacted, hasn't she? In that statement, she said, "I got your message."
I got your message, yeah.
And also, which I found quite extraordinary, just saying quite openly, we're prepared to pay.
Yes.
You know, don't think you get someone in a similar hunt in this country being allowed to
They'd presumably be advised by the police not to say anything like that in public, don't you think?
I don't know. But also interesting, of course, that Kash Patel of the FBI sort of saying the man was carrying a weapon as if that was a bad thing, just like the person who was killed in Minnesota. These are the people who used to be the champions of the right to bear arms.
The stills are almost more frightening, aren't they, if you look at these pictures? They really are.
Chilling.
Yeah, we'll certainly keep an eye on that case, which is gripping America. Back here, though, and you probably do not need reminding about the wet weather, but nearly 100 flood warnings remain in place. That's across England tonight. The current spells of rain are forecast to continue for at least another 10 days. Well, Sky's Dan Whitehead explains now why we're having to endure such a soggy spell.
Why is it so wet across the UK? Well, it's been like this for weeks on end. The Met Office says it's like winter stuck on repeat. The reason for it, a blocked weather pattern. But what is that? It sounds technical, but essentially it's when a large area of high pressure gets stuck due to a meandering jet stream. It prevents low-pressure systems from moving through. The result, persistent spells of wet weather get stuck in one place. Unfortunately for us, that's the UK, as well as other parts of Western Europe. Now, let's face it, the UK isn't known for great weather, but this is exceptional. Some parts of the country are facing the highest levels of rain since records began. Northern Ireland has had its wettest January in 149 years. There are flood warnings across the UK, and at least 300 homes have been flooded in England. We've been filming at West Yoe Farm in Somerset, but getting there was a challenge. We're trying to reach this flooded farm, but we've had to ditch the cars because the levels are so high, the Environment Agency is pumping out water.
With global warming, or whatever you like to call it, weather patterns are changing. We're having more rain, but we need the infrastructure to match that, not just here, across the whole of the country.
So is this rain showing any sign of stopping? Well, it doesn't look like it for a while yet. Although Saturday is looking drier and brighter, it is going to be much colder too. Until the weather pattern fully unblocks by either changes to the jet stream or a deep area of low pressure, the rain is here to stay.
Makes you want to cry.
I know, it's not exactly cheery, is it?
No, it's not. I'm just looking at the latest, actually. The Environment Agency suggesting that 99 flood warnings remain in place. 300 properties have been flooded so far. Record-breaking month of rain, at least 4. Cornwall in the southwest of England and County Down in Northern Ireland. Got a yellow weather warning now for rain in force for much of southern Wales and England until midnight. As well. I mean, it goes on and on and on, doesn't it?
And I have to say, seeing all these flood images, it really does put your own gripes about living in a constant state of drizzle into perspective, doesn't it?
I don't know.
I think we are now up to 40 days of continuous rain in the UK. The only thing that I sort of slightly wondered about that report was saying, oh, this is extraordinary and unusual, we haven't had it for 100 years. It seems to me, and you would remember as well, that we've been reporting on floods in England, certainly for the last couple of decades, and there probably is a connection.
Tewkesbury, Somerset Levels, I mean, all of them.
The Thames, you know, I've stood...
Worcester Cricket Ground.
Working for Sky News, I stood in those Somerset Levels in Wellington boots and all that. So I think people would be making a mistake if they think this is exceptional. This is almost, I'm sad to say, the new normal. And I like quoting... Caitlin Moran, the journalist, who said that there are now 2 seasons in the UK. Yeah. God was that summer and the flood times.
Yeah, exactly. which brings us back to why we're not saving enough water in the winter to get us through the dry summers. And actually, the people that still, when we touched on this last night, they're only just lifting.
We just don't have any water policy in this country. And I have to say...
So is this something that the government should now nationalise after, you know, the move to the left?
Well, there is actually something to be said, because these water companies, they make... It's not a competitive market. They cream...
Thames has had, you know...
I mean, I don't want to keep quoting Dominic Cummings, but again, those focus groups show that the thing the public hate most of all are the utilities.
Are we on Thatcher? We're blaming Thatcher for this one, are we?
Well, we're not blaming Thatcher. We're just saying that...
It was the way the water industry was privatised.
It is palpable that the water companies in the South East and in London and elsewhere are simply not doing their job of looking after a national asset, and they're still making money. And
they're paying big dividends.
And again, it's something that our politicians seem reluctant to get grips with.
OK. Well, this is a bit like the football scores. Look away now if you don't want the weather. Here it is, the forecast.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, Saturday, well, listen, should bring a brief drier, brighter and colder interlude. Celebrate, everybody. But otherwise, the dull and wet weather will continue, with disruption possible. So expect a rather murky start tomorrow with outbreaks of rain. Snow is more likely on northern Scottish mountains. It'll be windy in the north and far southwest, with coastal gales possible. Northern Ireland, northern England and southern and eastern Scotland will see prolonged rain through the morning, with snow continuing to affect the Highlands. Elsewhere, Elsewhere, the rain will turn more showery with some brightness possible for England's southernmost counties. It'll be mostly mild and rather windy. Scotland looks colder than today. The afternoon will be similar, but more of southern Britain should brighten for a time. That said, there'll still be showers there, with perhaps more general rain clipping the Channel coastal areas. Meanwhile, snow will affect other northern hills. The unsettled theme will continue on Thursday. Expect further showers or longer spells of rain with hill snow again in the north.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, plenty more to come in the next part of our programme. We'll have the latest from Washington as Democrats and indeed survivors of Jeffrey Epstein call for Virginia's law to remove the statute of limitations for crimes surrounding Epstein. Back with that and plenty more of the day's news in just a moment.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
Tonight on The Wrap, time to face the music. As Prince William avoids questions about his uncle's links to the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, a renewed call from Virginia Giuffre's family for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to head to the US.
What is your message to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor?
I think he should show up in front of our Congress and answer questions.
Also tonight, I'll never walk away. Sir Keir Starmer jokes it's been a busy week and says he will lead Labour into the next election as his former communications chief apologises for an association with a paedophile counsellor. About flipping time, after 3 decades away, Kemi Badenoch returns to McDonald's, the place she famously claimed made her working class. Well, we discuss today's biggest stories with Adam Boulton and Sonia Sodha, plus a first look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, including Sir Keir Starmer's premiership still under pressure. Well, good evening to you. Good evening, Adam and Sonia as well. Tonight, more pressure from the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for Andrew Mountbatten Windsor to travel to the US to speak to Congress. Here, the findings of the poll carried out exclusively for Sky News suggest the majority of the British public agree. We will have more on that in a moment. First of all, Sonia, Adam, clear that people are now really demanding appearances and accountability. Sonia.
Absolutely, and I hope that the campaigners win in terms of getting the statute of limitation made infinite in the US for crimes like sex trafficking. It's amazing that if victims come forward after a few years, it's too late.
Adam.
Well, there is clearly a moment of reckoning, not just for perpetrators of sex abuse, but for people who were friends with them.
Both of you, hear more from you in just a moment. But this afternoon, we saw a senior US Democrat outline calls for what they're calling Virginia's law, named after the woman who spoke out about Jeffrey Epstein. It would end, as Sonia said, the time limit on legal action for abuse victims, and with it a message for the former Duke of York to show up and give evidence. Here's our US correspondent, Mark Stone.
Stand with survivors and say no more.
The time for justice is now, and Congress must act.
No longer can abusers weaponize the clock. Survivors can act when they're ready to act.
The victims, the survivors, they are at the heart of a scandal that now has so many strands. And they were in the US Congress today, led by the brother of the woman whose teenage photo came to define the scandal.
Virginia's dream was to inspire and empower survivors to come forward. In a world that too often turns away from abuse and pushes it into the shadows, she wanted to bring light.
Virginia Giuffre, once Virginia Roberts, and once at the heart of Jeffrey Epstein's orbit. This photo, with a prince as he was, sparked the scandal in the UK. It led them both to court. In the end, he settled and paid her a sum undisclosed. He continues to deny wrongdoing.
The photograph of the then Prince Andrew with his arm around your sister has become, certainly in the UK, a defining part of this scandal. Clearly, he is one person who hasn't answered questions here. What is your message to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor today, please?
I think he should show up in front of our Congress and answer questions. I think that he has a lot of questions he needs to answer, and he has been exploited through these files to have inconsistencies in his own messaging. So I want today to be about Virginia's law, to not allowing this to happen again, but to Prince Andrew, former Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, to be specific. He needs to show up. He needs to show up, and he needs to answer questions in front of our Congress.
And Senator Schumer.
Same thing as what Sky said. He ought to show up and show up now.
That's significant. Chuck Schumer is the most senior Democratic Party politician in America. Quite the statement. The purpose of all this was to mark a moment for these survivors, the moment they push forward their aim to end the statute of limitations for victims of trafficking and abuse.
This is really a watershed moment for survivor rights. This law will change everything for them. It allows survivors to bring a claim whenever they're ready, with no time limitations. And that is a significant shift in the law.
I would like to answer your question, but on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer this question.
Epstein's co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell used her Fifth Amendment rights to remain silent this week when she appeared in Congress from jail.
I therefore invoke my right to silence under the Fifth Amendment to the US Constitution.
Ghislaine Maxwell showing up to the hearing yesterday and basically pleading the Fifth. It's basically you're scared to come forward because you have something to hide. And the reality is that your own good friend, Ghislaine Maxwell, outed you out in the files and basically confirmed everything that Virginia said was true.
Confirming that that photograph, which he denied, he said it could be a fake. The files proved that was no fake.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor continues to deny any wrongdoing. All they want here is for him to come to this place and answer their questions. Mark Stone, Sky News on Capitol Hill.
Well, Sonia's right. This has drifted into documents and, information delivered to Jeffrey Epstein. This takes it right back to the victims, where it all began.
It does, absolutely. And this is their campaign. I think viewers might be surprised to hear that in the US, there is a statute of limitations, even for serious crimes like sex trafficking. In the UK, we have no such thing. You commit a crime if a victim comes forward in 20 or 30 years, as long as there are leads, the police will investigate it. And the campaign in the US is to end that statute of limitations, particularly important in cases of sex trafficking, especially involving children, because of the shame and the stigma involved in these crimes. It can take victims, particularly victims who were children at the time of the crimes, sometimes many years, sometimes decades to come forward. And it's pretty shocking, I think, that in the US, if you don't do it within a certain number of years, you've lost your chance to hold your attacker to account. And also from a public interest perspective as well, the idea that potential criminals just get off because someone didn't come forward and accuse them in time, that leaves potentially dangerous people out in society. So an important campaign.
Yes, and Adam, it's not the first time we've heard calls for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, as he is now, to go to Congress to give evidence. Now we've got the top Democrat on Capitol Hill doing it. Does that make any difference at all, do you think?
Well, I don't think he's going to do it, because I think it would be a day and a very unpleasant day for him, and a sort of a heyday for grandstanding for Congress. I mean, it's interesting that the suggestions coming from the King, our King, is that he thinks Andrew should cooperate with the police. These congressional inquiries are not police inquiries, but it is interesting that while there's been this focus very much on the British people caught up in this, headed by former Prince Andrew, but also, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell, that today, in another congressional hearing at the Senate, it was revealed that a member of Donald Trump's cabinet, Howard Lutnick, has basically not been telling the truth about his relationship with Epstein. He said that he knew Epstein because he was a neighbour, but once he went to his house once, he and his wife thought that it was sleazy and they broke off their contacts. The Epstein files have revealed that Howard Lutnick invited his family round to so-called Pedo Island, St James, Little St James Island, in 2012 to see Epstein, and that, of course, significantly was after Epstein had been convicted for the first time. I
mean, Howard Lutnick does say, the guy moved next door to me in New York and I barely saw him over 14 years. So he's been defending himself tonight. But are you suggesting that, finally, members of Trump's administration are being slightly sucked into this in the way that our establishment is?
Yes, I am, yeah. I mean, I think it's slightly significant. I mean, of course, you can say, going with your family to see someone, nothing wrong with it. He says, my wife was with me, my children were with me, so clearly he wasn't up to any hanky-panky. But, this is someone not telling the truth about their relationship with Epstein, who has been caught out because of the dump of material. Should just add that Donald Trump's comment is that it's all a hoax.
Well, interestingly, of course, we know that members of Congress have now been able to see the unredacted files, complaining that it's only on 4 computers that they've been allowed to peruse, and they have identified what they say are men who have been redacted unnecessarily, and they are calling them co-conspirators.
Yeah,
so we'll
9,
see.
I think, isn't it?
I thought it was 6, but is it? Yeah, 6, I think, yeah. So, you know, that is another development that we've been seeing from the States. In the meantime, let's take a look at Sky News' exclusive poll, which was carried out by YouGov. It found that an overwhelming majority, that is 82% of people, thought that the King should encourage Andrew to give evidence to police in the US. Just 6% disagreed, with 13% saying not sure. The poll also found that 45% believe the King has done enough to distance himself and the wider royal family from Andrew. That's close to those. You can see 39% saying he should be doing more, 16% could not decide. We also asked if the King should stop Andrew from living on the Sandringham estate, and the majority, that's 63%, said they believe he should. Only 16% disagreed, with 20% saying they weren't sure. Well, Prince William has faced an uncomfortable time, I guess, in Saudi Arabia on his visit, asked questions about his uncle Andrew Mountbatten Windsor on the second day then of that visit to Saudi Arabia. He was touring a sports centre in the Saudi capital, Riyadh, when reporters asked him to comment on the royal family's handling of the Epstein scandal.
Sir, to what extent do you think the royal family has done enough around the Andrew and Epstein issue? Sir, to what extent do you think the royal family has done enough around the Andrew and Epstein issue?
The questions continue. The heckling might well be organised, but, you know, it is becoming uncomfortable, is it not, for the royal family?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, in that poll, more people said they thought the King had done enough to distance himself than didn't. But as you say, it was quite close. And clearly the public have got absolutely no time at all. And I think there are actually some, you know, there's increasingly going to be questions for the palace as well as the police look into this, for example. So, you know, there are allegations that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor took Epstein or hosted Epstein and some girls at Buckingham Palace when the Queen was away, for example. Who knew about that? Are there logs, for example? So there definitely are questions for the royal family.
Adam?
Yeah, I think that's right. And of course, what we have to bear in mind is that were the King to say, I believe Prince Andrew should go and give evidence, I'm not saying he's going to do it, but Andrew would have no alternative. He would then have to go and give evidence. Short of that, one can see no reason why he would. And there is a difference between giving evidence to Congress, which a lot of this is talking about, and giving evidence to the police if they want to actually shape an investigation and a possible prosecution.
Yes, very interesting. And many people saying, you know, accountability is now required. What does that look like? Is Andrew a proven liar from what he said on television, what he actually said potentially to his late mother and to his brother, now the King? And what did people in the heart of the palace know and when about what happened? So lots of questions, certainly.
And certainly in former Prince Andrew's case, the most damning thing is that clear statement by Ghislaine Maxwell, again revealed in the Epstein files, that that photograph was genuine.
Which we heard from Mark Stone asking a specific question to Virginia Giuffre's brother. Well, the backwash of all of it has affected the Prime Minister. He appeared in upbeat mood today, having survived one of the most difficult days of his premiership. Having been buoyed by support then from members of his cabinet, Keir Starmer joked that it had been a busy week, but he'd never walk away from the country he loves.
We've pulled together as a party and been absolutely crystal clear about the fight we need to have. And that's the fight on behalf of all the people in this country who don't get the respect, the dignity and the chance that they deserve in life. That is the fight that we are in. That's who we're fighting for. I'm their Prime Minister and this is their government. And what the last few days has shown is that that is absolutely the focus of this government. And we need to change in the sense of being out there, making that argument over and over again. Not talking internally to ourselves, which caused chaos under the last government, talking to the country and making it absolutely clear we're elected on a mandate for change, a 5-year mandate. It is our duty to deliver on that mandate.
Well, as we said, the questions still remain. Let's show you the front page of The Guardian. The suggestion is from allies, the paper says, of Wes Streeting, that he's still intent on deposing the Prime Minister. Despite the united front we saw from every single member of the Cabinet yesterday, allies of Wes Streeting expect him to try to depose Keir Starmer within weeks. Adam, what's the latest on this?
Well, the latest is minutes after that front page appeared, Wes Streeting put something on X. He put out a statement saying The Guardian did not approach me or my team with these claims. Had they done so, I would have said that this is categorically untrue. So, frankly, it's odd if you're going to make a story as big as this on the front page that you wouldn't actually check it back with Wes Streeting or even his spokesman. So, certainly these allies, whoever they are, have been speaking out of turn.
Yes, or they haven't. I mean, who knows? I mean, has somebody been playing around here, making Wes Streeting the great bogeyman? Because the Financial Times tells us, Sonia, that allies, again, admit Starmer is too weak to sack Streeting after coup speculation, which was also denied, to be fair. Anyway, so is he still intent on at some point standing? Clearly is not quite ready. So where do you think they're at?
Well, I think where they're at is that the Prime Minister has sort of bought himself at least a few more weeks after yesterday, because Anas Sarwar came out, leader of Scottish Labour, said he should resign, and literally no one followed him. And in fact, it had this effect where it actually unified the Cabinet, ministers and MPs. You saw statement after statement on X, you know, this guy is the best guy to run the country, he's got a mandate, etc. But at the same time, Keir Starmer is still extremely weak. And the reason is fundamental. It's not just because of these Mandelson revelations, as damaging as they are. It's because his poll ratings are absolutely dire, and Labour MPs are extremely worried about going into the next election with him for that reason. And that's quite a rational position for them to take. So that is why he's weak. That's why you've got other leadership potentials kind of eyeing up the position. You've got Wes Streeting on the right, Angela Rayner on the left. So none of this speculation is going to go away, and you've basically got a weak Prime Minister who's there. It's a bit stable for now, but he can't really get anything done in Parliament. And he's got a cabinet where a lot of the cabinet are actually focused on leadership shenanigans rather than running their government department.
Yes, the quote's in the FT. I don't think he can sack Wes. I don't think he has the strength to sack anyone right now, said one Starmer ally. He's too weak. Another member, this is of Starmer's team, said sacking Wes would just uncork even more political chaos of the kind we're trying to avoid. In the meantime, the unexploded grenade that got hurled middle of last week, Adam, was the unleashing of the documents surrounding Mandelson's vetting and appointment. Takes us to the Times, which suggests that officials are trawling through records going back more than 25 years to Tony Blair's government for further evidence of inappropriate contact between Lord Mandelson and the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. 25 years.
Well, I don't think it's even just about contacts with Jeffrey Epstein, who he appears to have met round about 2000. And, of course, he was in the government in the 1990s and subsequently. And what it looks like they're doing, according to this Times story, is that they are looking into just checking whether anything dodgy went on when he was Northern Ireland Minister. Was he, you know, because once it's out there, which it is in the Epstein files, that he was passing on government discussions to third parties. I think
taking some money.
Yeah, I think due diligence is that they have to look into that. What I think is very clear is that Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has decided he wants to throw the book at Peter Mandelson. And the more he can blame Peter Mandelson for what went on, clearly, by implication, the better it is for him if he can say this, you know, this man was a villain, he misled us all, and he lied to us all. Incidentally, I'm just looking at the headlines in the New York Times, and very interesting, they're all leading on the Epstein files, which has not happened for the past week since the dump came. You know, a headline, first of all, of course, Peter Mandelson, the ties that bound Peter Mandelson to Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein files reveal efforts to build ties with officials in Russia. Former police chief said Trump told him everyone knew about Epstein's actions. Epstein directed aid to obtain hidden video cameras. So it looks like the congressional stuff that Mark was reporting on is beginning to break through into the American news cycle.
And it's very interesting, I mean, whether Sir Keir Starmer gets sucked in during this investigation, because actually the Daily Telegraph is reporting that Sir Keir Starmer was shown evidence of Lord Mandelson's close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein before appointing him as US ambassador. Civil servants included a Telegraph article in a due diligence dossier on the disgraced peer, which was sent to the Prime Minister in late 2024. Sir Keir has repeatedly claimed he was unaware of the depth of Lord Mandelson's relationship with Epstein, bless you, before he appointed him to run the British Embassy in Washington. And certainly on X, that article is on, and you can see what was written in it if you'd like to read it for yourself. So this is, as I said, the unexploded grenade which has been hurled towards Keir Starmer and those involved.
And it is the thing that kind of undermines Keir Starmer a bit, because no one's suggesting that he knew about the financial potential impropriety. But he said that he didn't know that their relationship was ongoing, how deep it was. We know there were reports. There was a Telegraph report, but also the FT uncovered that there was a JP Morgan memo, which we know went to Number 10. Who knows what happened to it? That commented specifically on the fact that Mandelson and Epstein were close friends.
And the problem is, it just goes back to, frankly, whether Keir Starmer is up to the job of being Prime Minister. I mean, it clearly now, with hindsight, it was a misjudgment. The question is whether at the time you should have known that it was a misjudgment, bearing in mind that this vetting process goes on. But bear in mind that Keir Starmer has said in the past that he's actually delivered speeches he hasn't read before, as in the Island of Strangers. Maybe that he simply didn't bother to read this dossier.
That was an extraordinary comment, wasn't it,
but
about the speech that he sort of resiled from.
Yeah. But they are busy people. Let's put it out there. It's a bit of a big job. Lots more still to come in the next part of our programme, including Kemi, the Burger Queen, the Tory leader, emulates President Trump and goes back to her working-class job at McDonald's.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
being a Sky News presenter?
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report, and this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Now, Kemi Badenoch has made a brief return to her first job in McDonald's. She put in a stint, I thought I was going to say put an outfit on, at the fast food chain today alongside her shadow chancellor, Mel Stride, on a business visit. Now, the Tory leader, she famously and controversially said, you'll remember it, in an interview, that she became working class when she was 16, working in the burger restaurant. Oh, she's, come on, flip them. There we are. It seems her time flipping burgers didn't exactly all come back to her, as she was jokingly told she was too slow by a member of staff. The opposition leader was tasked with making a sausage muffin and hash brown.
I understand that you used to work at McDonald's. I did in 1996, so 30 years ago. Oh, he's not taking out though.
Are you eating
Yeah. See, I haven't forgotten everything. I still remember. Do you need me to do any more? I'm going as fast as I can. I'm doing four.
Definitely got the job.
Yeah. Order for Kemi. Thank you. There we go. Number 10. Enjoy it. Number 10.
Well, of course, she's not the only politician to have put in a shift, sort of anyway, in the fast food chain in recent years. Let's take a look at this.
Well, I'm looking for a job, and I've always wanted to work at McDonald's, but I never did. If you don't mind, I want to work the French fry counter.
Absolutely.
Okay, how much are you paying me?
How much are you paying me?
I love McDonald's. I love jobs. I like to see good jobs.
He eats a lot of them, doesn't he? We know he eats a lot of them. Somebody said, actually, that he's worried his food's going to be poisoned, but anyway.
His favourite's apparently Burger King.
Burger King, oh dear.
Appropriately, he likes the
Other
Whopper.
burger joints are available.
Yeah, he likes the Whopper. But you appropriately enough.
Boom, boom. I think we're coming on to puns later, Adam.
But you may remember that the reason why he did that was because it turned out that Kamala Harris had actually worked in a McDonald's, so that was her sort of working class credential. So he cancelled it out, and he ended up, we didn't have it on that clip, of doling chips out the window to. I mean, he got to give him credit. He turned it around very well. I thought Kemi Badenoch, she did okay. I didn't think Mel Stride looked too happy, really.
No.
The shadow chancellor, but. In her recent Desert Island Discs, she explained that when she was 16, having grown up in Nigeria, although she was born in this country, she came on her own to go to school here and generally didn't have much money. So she actually had to work in McDonald's to make ends meet as a schoolgirl.
Doesn't necessarily make you working class, though, does it? But anyway, that's
no, but I think, we can argue about the class thing, but, all credit to her. I had a friend who worked in the McDonald's in Croydon when I was at school, when I was in sixth form, and I felt quite lucky that I wasn't doing it. So it sounded exhausting. Yeah. Absolutely exhausting, those shifts, even when you're like 16, 17 and got bags of energy.
I think she was in Wimbledon McDonald's, so maybe slightly more genteel.
I was in the...
What are you saying about Croydon, Adam?
We are going to take a look at the newspapers right now, so let's take a look at the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers, starting with The Guardian. It reports that allies of West Streeting expect him to try to depose the Prime Minister within the next few weeks. He's commented on that, saying that nobody reached out to him or his allies. Financial Times also leading with the future of the Labour Party, saying Starmer allies say that he is too weak to sack the Health Secretary. The Eye reports that Lord Doyle has been suspended from the Labour Party over his links with a Labour councillor charged with possessing indecent images of children. The Express leads with the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, saying that the government's taxes are a shameful assault on the high street. The Times claims the Mandelson investigation will go back to the Blair era. This is his association with Epstein and his appointment as US ambassador. The Telegraph covers the stabbing of 2 boys at a North London school as police arrest the teenage suspect. And that story is also on the front page of the Daily Mail, which says the investigation into the double stabbing is being led by the Met Police's counter-terror unit. To the Mirror now, a teenager is sentenced to a minimum term of 13 years for fatally stabbing 12-year-old Leo Ross in January last year. The Metro reports a drug dealer inspired by the film Home Alone to booby-trap his house gets 7 years in prison. And finally, The Star leads with the number 10, Cat Larry, and his perspective on the goings-on at Downing Street. Those are the front pages. Should we delve inside and go straight to The Times, which talks about Andy Burnham, who gave a speech today, effectively telling Starmer, the paper reports, to move left and help the underdog, Sonia.
Yeah, and I think there is questions, though. What does that actually mean when people are calling on the Prime Minister to move left? As we were saying in the last ad, does it mean taxes going up so we can spend more on public services? And I think what this story really reveals is just how much work there is yet to do for some of these leadership contenders, in inverted commas, because obviously there's no leadership contest yet, but how much work there is for them to do in sort of setting out what their vision for the country is. Andy Burnham, I suppose, has given a speech, but it's still quite kind of high-level stuff. It's kind of like maybe if Labour had been in opposition and you're 5 years out of a general election, you can give a nice speech that says, yes, I think we should draw on these philosophical principles, etc., etc. But I think one of the reasons why Starmer is so weak and why he's got these issues is because Labour didn't do the homework in opposition of what their governing agenda was going to be. They didn't have a fully worked-through plan for how they were going to attempt to get the economy back on track within 5 years. You know, their welfare reforms have floundered. You look at their sort of education policy, it's very centred around breakfast clubs, good but incremental. So I think there is a lack of policy and I don't think we know yet what an Andy Burnham premiership looks like and how it would differ from a West Streeting premiership.
I mean, Andy Burnham, as the Times said, is talking about the underdog. And in the same article, they say Ed Miliband playing the class card, saying, you know, what really drives Keir Starmer is that he's very concerned about class differences. And that's also something which Keir Starmer touched on. Now, the point about this is Labour would like to be seen as the party of the working class. Now, we can actually argue whether there is such a thing as a working class. Certainly there isn't the mass industrial working class that used to be. But the point is, the people saying this are London, white-collar, middle-class people sentimentalising about a working class which they feel they've lost, rather than people who actually represent it. And that's why we get all this stuff about Keir Starmer being, you know, the son of a toolmaker, or indeed Kemi Badenoch going and saying, I used to work in... I mean, who gives a damn, frankly? I mean, that's all. Yeah. It's not the issue.
And I think there's an extent to which voters sort of see that as displacement activity for what they're really concerned about, which is what's happening with the economy, how much money do I have left at the end of the month, can I afford things like childcare? If you're a young person who's just finished your university degree and you can't get a job, what are the government going to do for me? These are the real questions that people have. We're living in an economy that's quite stagnant. Living standards haven't really shifted the dial in the last 20 years. Where is the economic growth? That is the only thing that is going to get Labour back to where it needs to be before the next election. growth.
Yes, and Andy Button was saying, you know, his is a politics of community and cohesion, rejecting division, and yet inserting, you know...
That actually sounds like something Keir Starmer would say.
Rejecting class, you know, talking about the working class, and therefore inserting class as a mechanism to divide, and in order to penalise the wealthy, which is what Ed Miliband's, you know, leadership was all about. Now his rivals have Starmer where they really want him. Do they want him to head soft left? We've seen in the Miliband says he will not stand against Starmer. But really, without Morgan McSweeney, who was the one that didn't like Corbyn politics because he'd seen, you know, red council leaders in London and wanted Labour to claim the centre ground, without Morgan McSweeney, is the drift therefore leftward? And is it because his rivals have Starmer where they really want him?
Well, some of the... Yeah, it is. And you know, everyone is now saying it. I've actually been saying it for a while, that you know, the most influential person in the Labour Party at the moment is Ed Miliband. And Ed Miliband has said repeatedly he doesn't want to be leader. I think it's pretty clear if there's a change, he would, and perhaps even under Starmer, he would like to be Chancellor of the Exchequer. We know he has the economic views he has. And, you know, it is possible. There have been several articles about this. So there's an article in the Times tomorrow by Dana Finkelstein. There was an article by James Kirkup in the Telegraph today, actually saying whether it makes sense, a kind of populist left-wing appeal, basically saying we can go on paying for benefits and the rich can pay. I mean, you know, you probably would get 30% of the country signing up for that.
Yeah, which you did under Corbyn, obviously, as well. Would you be in favour of that? I mean, or not, do you think? This drift leftwards and get 30% of the population?
Yeah, I sort of think, like, the left-right thing... Did
Brexit destroy it?
Well, voters want growth, right? They don't call it growth. They need to feel like they're better off. That is the most important thing. It is growth that delivers that to voters. It's growth that delivers increased tax intake. So, as Labour, you can invest in public services. That was the Tony Blair magic formula in the 2000s. The problem is we haven't got that growth, which means that instead a Labour government faces really tough trade-offs. So, personally, yes, I would love us to be doing more as a country to address child poverty financially, for example. But then the money for that has got to come from somewhere. So you've got to have a government that's sort of brave enough to put up some taxes. But that's quite tricky unless you've got a leader who's willing to make that pitch to the electorate and do it in a very effective way. And I'm just not sure that's where we are with this Labour Party.
I think it's a debate that will continue. Lots more still to come in the next part of our papers, including schools suggest they're spending 100 hours a week now policing phone use. That and more stories as well in just a moment.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
We're taking a look at more of the newspapers with Adam and with Sonia. We're delving into the Mirror this time. The Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, will soon publish her school's white paper to overhaul special educational needs. Now, Sam Coates did loads about this. Secondary schools will be told to revamp classrooms to accommodate pupils with extra needs.
Yes, so they're going to all have to have send, I think, inclusion units, it's been called. This is going to be the next big fight for the government in terms of policies, I think. The issue is that the system is incredibly adversarial at the moment, so vast amounts of money are spent by parents fighting for legal entitlements for their children, and it's like very have-not in the system. It takes money away from actual education. The problem is, so it is a system very much in need of reform. The problem is it's such a low-trust system. Parents know their kids aren't going to get what they need unless they fight tooth and nail in that adversarial legal system to get those entitlements. So it's very difficult for the government to come along and say, trust us. We're going to scrap the legal entitlements altogether, and schools will just deliver what these kids need. That's a difficult sell to parents. Those parents are going to be very angry. They're going to be writing to their Labour MPs, and Labour MPs are thinking, how are we going to vote for this? So it's the same story as welfare reform.
Aren't you, Adam? You just think it's...
Well, I mean, there were also reports at the weekend and recommendations from the IPPR, which is normally seen as a left of centre thing, which simply said too many people are getting statemented, that, you know, the proportion of the school population that's getting statemented has gone up and up and up, which, of course, has then imposed costs on the system.
Like transport, for example, taxiing children
like transport, like you know, the automatic right to various things. And so, you know, the question is, does the government, you know, go on playing to this agenda, saying, oh, well, it's all going to be all right and we're going to convert school, or do they actually say to people, actually, the majority of children don't have special educational needs and they should be a priority as well?
OK, two other quick stories on education. One is schools spend 100 hours a week policing phone use, which doesn't really surprise me. And another one in the Times, which is always strong in education, a big increase in teachers paid more than £125,000.
And it's still quite small numbers. I think that's going to be head teachers who run, you know, academy trusts, so run several schools. And quite frankly, that is a very big, important job, so I haven't got a problem with it. The 100 hours a week on I mean, it does take effort for schools to ban phones, and that is what they should be doing. Personally, I would go further and I would have a law that says that children should only own and have access to smartphones that do not have access to social media. I think that would help create a new cultural norm, and it would maybe take some of the pressure off schools.
So brick phone until 16?
Yeah.
Adam?
Let's do it.
Do you agree?
Well, I think something's going to have to be done. I mean, the only problem is that in adult life, phones are so universal that, you know, there's a worry that there would be a cliff edge of people suddenly getting phones at 16, which would completely disrupt the sixth form.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, this is my favourite story of the evening, I have to say. It is an Olympic biathlete who won bronze, a Norwegian, and then live on television admitted having an affair and broke down suggesting he was a loser. He told Norwegian network NRK at the Milan and Cortina Olympics, "There is something I want to share with someone who may not be watching today. Half a year ago, I met the love of my life, the world's most beautiful and nicest person. 3 months ago, I made the mistake of my life and cheated on her. ... Goodness me, he was getting something off his chest, wasn't he?
I've got one word, narcissism. And if that was... Yes, I'm sorry. Like, come on, get a grip. That is not information to be shared in public. You know,
No,
that's guilt-driven.
It was a desperate bid to get this I think it's a woman, get this woman back. I mean, that's the point, isn't it?
Oh, I didn't realise she dumped him when he
Oh, yeah,
told her a week ago.
No, he said she may not even be watching this, but I want to get a message out to you.
Oh, I missed that bit of the story.
I made a dreadful mistake having an affair with someone. So it is a sort of...
I mean, how about not cheating on your partner?
No. Fair enough, but, but look, he had his 15 minutes of fame getting a bronze in, you know, whatever winter sport it was, and he used it to try and get this woman back.
Well, maybe it's going to end happily.
You've got 30 seconds for the UK Pun Championships. And I've lost a bit of paper, so I can't actually...
There was a pun championships. Someone won them. They had a very good pun. Shall I read you a pun? Quickly. My friend and I paid a wizard to cast a spell so that Giorgio Armani would live forever. So when he died, we went back and said, we'd like Armani back.
Right. Anyway,
I mean, I'm not sure that's that brilliant, but...
Adam, don't do another one, please. Don't do it. Don't do it.
It's a bit contrived.
Yeah, OK, good. Right, anyway, Manchester United might have cut it fine to rescue a draw against West Ham in the Premier League tonight, but the same cannot be said for one fan's hairdo. Frank Illett, better known as the United Strand, has gone viral on the internet for refusing to cut his hair until the Red Devils win 5 games in a row. Well, having won 4 straight going into this evening, here is the moment the referee blew for full time, ending the match in a 1-all draw.
Please. No!
No! Not like this! No! Not like this!
I want the soccer, of course, but...
Don't blow the whistle, man! Come on!
Oh, so he can't cut his hair.
Until they've won 5 matches in a
row.
He's got the full Brian May there.
He's got the full Brian May, and it's going to keep growing. Anyway, good luck.
I guess it's a good way to get yourself in the papers, isn't it?
It is.
Does that sound a bit cynical? Sorry.
Yes. Everybody with narcissism tonight. Lots more stuff to come. We will have the sport, in fact. As I say, thank you to Sonia and to Adam for this evening. How Tottenham's Premier League season went from bad to worse.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories. This is insane. I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
We call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
There's a fresh look to your news from 10 on Sky News.
It's a new show called The Wrap, every night of the week.
We'll still bring you the day's biggest stories,
but with more lively debate,
more in-depth commentary,
and more of what you need to know.
Plus a look at what's making tomorrow's headlines.
The Wrap.
Everything wrapped up for you from 10 on Sky News.
We're so used to seeing you with Rob. What's it like doing this kind of stuff when he's not here?
Yeah, I miss him. He just inspired me to be a better person. He's shown us what living looks like in the toughest and most difficult of circumstances.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
He had a beautiful death. This is about a dying person's choice to die peacefully when they want to, on their terms.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionately. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation. Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance, that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to. Being a Sky News presenter. Hello and welcome, Westminster, the heart of British politics. I'm so sorry about what happened to you. So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Well, time for Tuesday Sport now. Let's cross over to Sky Sports News and David.
There's a reason why I've got a Premiership now.
There was a lot of noise around Alan possibly going to Manchester United and then Newcastle.
If you're asking me would I like Alan Shearer here, of course, who wouldn't like Alan Shearer?
Doesn't bother me at all, that's all it is, talk.
There are only two clubs that are interested in Alan.
I spoke to Sir Alex Ferguson. The temptation to go to Man United was huge.
You name your price, you've got to be prepared to stick to it.
How much is it? Because that was a world record.
It's £15 million, making it virtually impossible for me to leave.
I think there was an inevitability that he would move at some stage.
For United! I will the lads!
We're breaking records. We're giving people hope again.
Be like 7:25 for his name and number.
I just had to come back home. It was my dream to play for Newcastle and score goals at the Gallagher.
A lot of people probably looked at us and thought we probably needed a couple of centre-halves. Not Keegan.
After all, I'm only a sheet metal worker's son from Newcastle.
If I had to make the same decision again, it would be signed for Newcastle all day long.
Blackburn Rovers are finally back in the big time. Jack Walker's millions and the managerial expertise of Kenny Dalglish are proving a potent combination at Ewood Park these days.
I knew what was happening up there at Blackburn. They were continually spending money. We was building to be successful. Jack Walker just had one idea, which was, this is my hometown club. I'm not interested in too much on the commercial side. I just want them to be a success.
Shearer, he scored on his debut! Alan Shearer, Britain's most expensive footballer, starts to repay the fee with that cracking volley. Made it hard for myself, haven't I? People are going to expect great things off me now.
Being the most expensive footballer in the Premier League, how important was it for you within your own mind to get off to a good start and start banging in a few goals?
Blackburn Rovers and Southampton Football Club have put that price tag on me. People keep saying to me I'm the most expensive, all right I am, but I've got nothing to do with that price tag. I can only go out and play to the best of my ability, and if clubs want to pay that amount of money for me, then so be it.
It was Kenny and Ray, obviously, who had decided that they would like to buy him. Ray had him with the England under-21s. He knew what talent was there. And it was at their instigation, really.
The atmosphere completely changed. We'd started signing more expensive players, and it were just little old Blackburn that were doing it.
Well, I'm afraid there are continued flood warnings. The Environment Agency, just to give you the latest figures, warned that flooding is expected in 99 areas. Mostly that's across the south of England, around the southern Welsh border and into the East Midlands. And there was possible in a further 170 areas. That's the latest from the Environment Agency. So let's take a look at the weather, shall we?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
Well, Saturday should bring a brief, drier, brighter and colder interlude, but otherwise the dull and wet weather will continue, with disruption possible. Expect a rather murky start tomorrow with outbreaks of rain, but snow is more likely on northern Scottish mountains. It will be windy in the north and far southwest, with coastal gales possible. Northern Ireland, Northern England and southern and eastern Scotland will see prolonged rain through the morning, with snow continuing to affect the Highlands. Elsewhere, the rain will turn more showery, with some brightness possible for England's southernmost counties. Mostly mild, rather windy, Scotland looks colder than today. The afternoon will be similar, but more of southern Britain should brighten for a time. That said, there will still be showers there, with perhaps more general rain clipping the Channel coast. Meanwhile, snow will affect other northern hills. The unsettled theme, I'm afraid, will continue on Thursday. Expect further showers or longer spells of rain, with hill snow again in the north. It'll turn colder for many, but the far south will remain mild.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Well, that was the wrap this Tuesday evening. Thank you so much for watching. We've got all the top stories coming up in the Midnight News here on Sky with Nick Qureshi, including renewed pressure from the victims of Epstein.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.